On behalf of the Embassy of Switzerland in the US, thank you for joining us for this film discussion today as part of our Swiss Film Club. My name is Emily Buss and I work in the public diplomacy section here at the Embassy. This Swiss Film Club is now in its 6th year. It was started in 2020 during the COVID pandemic to create moments of shared viewership when they were more difficult to find. And this month's film has a connection to the COVID-19 pandemic as well, as we'll discuss. But thank you all for supporting our film programming still. For this April 2025 edition of the Film Club, we're screening the documentary The Messenger, a story of mRNA, which premiered in 2023. This is a documentary which highlights the history of mRNA therapies and vaccines, which have allowed humanity to enter a revolutionary new era in medicine. Through a series of interviews, the film highlights the personal battles of the scientists who were working to develop these technologies and bring their contributions to the mainstream. And it delves into this really incredible page in history of science especially, in exploring the sometimes chaotic and unexpected ways that research is carried out. So I'm very thrilled to be joined for a discussion of the film today by one of its directors, Yelena Ganshof from the Meersch, who is a filmmaker originally from Siberia, but now based in Geneva in Switzerland. She grew up in a medical family, and so she has maintained a focus on science and research in her filmmaking. And Yelena has over 25 years of experience living and working around the world in the US, Russia, Singapore, and Switzerland in a range of fields, diplomacy, economics, and banking. And she has previously created and hosted a talk show, Inside Tomorrow, which focuses on trends related to AI, biotechnology, engineering, and space technology. So, Yelena, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to hear more about the film.
Thank you for hosting me.
So with that, let's start at the beginning. I'm curious to hear how you became interested in the history of mRNA and the research around it, and what made you want to tell the story on film. Was this something that grew out of the pandemic, or were you already thinking about it beforehand?
I think that I didn't even know what messenger RNA was. So sitting during the pandemic, isolated, I realized that the conversation started turning about vaccination. And there were vaccines from AstraZeneca, Sputnik, and those new vaccines based on messenger RNA technology. And I think I started getting very curious. But I must admit that many of you, I had questions. I wasn't sure at all I wanted to get vaccinated. But as I said, growing in a medical family, and once even considered going to a medical school, I said to myself that without vaccination, either natural or artificial, we will never get out of this chaos. So I started researching to better understand what messenger RNA is and who stands behind this innovation. And I think that my curiosity set the stage for what would become the film, The Messenger, the story of mRNA.
Wonderful. Well, how did you approach taking this topic? You said you did some research yourself, but a topic that requires normally a lot of specialized scientific and medical knowledge, and decide to make it accessible, or what was your approach to make it more accessible to a general public?
I started making a research without knowing what messenger RNA is, because I think that my initial idea is to explain it in a very comprehensive way that a 6 years old and a 60 years old can understand. And I think that scientists usually have a problem with it. They're very smart, and the way they start explaining in a very, how can I say, very complex way that often needs a certain translation. And in our team, when we started making a filmmaking team, one of the co-directors, he's a biology major from the University of Geneva. So he was the one who was helping us, kind of supervising all the scientific aspects in graphic animations and also in the content. And our editor, who was not really scientific, but she knew how to edit, so she would notice certain terminology in the script, and she would always notice and say, okay, Peter Krulis said she found something that sounded like transiridium-induced amyloidosis. We could hardly pronounce this part. And she said, dropping something like this on the audience, it's like dropping a bomb. So we started kind of searching on this battlefield, those little bombs, because even nucleic acids, very few people, I think, understand what it is. I didn't know what it was. So Tarek Daoud, my co-director, Swiss co-director, he explained to us during the editing. And we started searching for those little bombs, clearing the field, and introducing term by term and dose by dose in this kind of learning experience for the non-scientific audience.
Yeah. And you mentioned the animation that takes place near the beginning of the film to explain what messenger RNA is, and I thought that was very helpful as a non-scientific person myself.
And making those animations was really challenging.
I'm sure.
I was very excited, and in fact, before the production, I looked at a few graphic animations online, on YouTube, and they all looked kind of fascinating and very colorful, but at the end of the animation I would ask myself, so did I get it? No, I didn't get it. So it means that those animations were made again by the scientific advisor, but not by the person who is a communicator. And we found a graphic animation agency in Geneva, Le Truc. And the initial draft looked like molecules, and they looked like starships, and the whole thing looked like Star Wars. And I said, I'm not so sure this is the right way. So I started going through the script, that all the interviewers' transcription, because we asked every protagonist in the film how they would explain what messenger RNA is. And the most interesting explanation was given by Professor Steve Pascoe from the University of Zurich Hospital. He compared DNA as a book, some kind of a saint book of life, and RNA is a page from the book. And to continue the discussion, I said, okay, if DNA is a book of life, RNA is a copy, I get it, okay. Who are all the other personages, those little elves, if this is Santa, who are those little elves? And I gave him a list. What is a ribosome? What is proteins? And in a few days after, he sent me a drawing of a little kitchen and a little chef. And I said, this is good. Yeah. That was really good. Yeah. That was just the idea. And there was a big watermark across the page saying, not to share. That's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to run to our animation team and say, okay, that's what we have. Can you do that? So after getting the permission from Steve Pascoe, that's what we did. And when they saw this little kitchen, a little chef, and they said, this we can do. This looks good. And still, yeah, during the graphic animations, Tarek Daoud, our co-director, he was correcting certain things. Okay. Saying that, ooh, you encapsulated RNA into the donut. They look like donuts, but those are not donuts. They must look like soccer balls. So a spheric bowl. So I said, we're going to change this. So he was checking every kind of scientific detail so that we are scientifically correct in the film.
Well, it's a good transition. You were talking about the various people that you interviewed. Maybe I found helpful that you started with a journalist to give the broadest explanation of what we were talking about in this film. But how did you become connected with the people that you interviewed for the film, and how did you decide which people to interview?
First of all, journalist that starts the film actually was the last one we interviewed already during the editing process, because editing was really tough. Because science is complex, really, really complex. And initially we had kind of a long list potential people to interview. Until I realized that having a long list in a film, maybe it's not the best idea, because the audience wouldn't remember everyone. So we need to kind of make a short list and identify who is accessible, who is available, and would like to contribute to the film. And that's what we did. It took us some time to access the potential protagonists. And initially, I had mostly male protagonists in the film, and we were missing the female representation. And at that time, I already noticed Professor Katalin Carico. In media, she was, I think, all over the media on different podcasts, interviews, there was articles. She was becoming very, very popular, and I kept telling myself, I need to connect with her, I need to connect. Yelena, you gotta connect with Katalin Carico. And finally, I dropped her a message. And she responded to me with a reference to her media agent in California. I didn't see this coming. I said, okay. So after a few weeks of communication, I realized that there is another agent. And that agent was her daughter, Susan Francier. And I dropped Susan a message over LinkedIn, and she responded me the same day, saying, I know who you are, we're aware of your documentary, and we would love to contribute with female representation to the film. And I was like, yes, yes. This message changed everything.
Yeah.
And it also brought us the interviews with Özlem Türeci and Umur Şahin from BioNTech.
That's great. Oh, that's wonderful. So obviously messenger RNA has been in the news a lot over the last several years, more in people's top of mind. What has the reaction been? The film came out at the end of 2023, so I'm curious to hear what the reaction has been, both in Switzerland, but as you have screened the film elsewhere.
The reaction was very positive. And in fact, the story is that we almost finished the film by the end of summer 2023. And it was scheduled to the official release at the RTS, Swiss National Television broadcaster, our co-producer, for October 2023. And then it was the 2nd of October 2023, and it was my eldest daughter's birthday. So we were in a supermarket buying some champagne and good food, and I saw a notification on my phone on the Bloomberg saying that Katalin Carico and Drew Weissman received a Nobel Prize in medicine. I couldn't believe it. I said, oh my God, this is a scientist from our film, and they got the Nobel Prize, and I felt like, oh my God, we got the Nobel Prize as well. So we were all very excited, and I communicated this message to our co-producer at the RTS, and they said, okay, let's move the release to December, when we have the official ceremony of the Nobel Prize. And that's what we did, and we had to reshuffle the trailer, the film trailer, funneling this to the Nobel Prize. And we also added an additional frame to the film that Katalin Carico and Drew Weissman received a Nobel Prize in medicine. So we were super excited, and I think that at the channel there was a record number of audience watching the film. And sometimes I still meet some people and I say, oh, I'm producer of The Messenger. Oh, I saw The Messenger. So it's always, I'm always thrilled to hear those comments.
Yeah. So when you hear from people who've seen the film, what is one thing, or maybe a couple of things, that you hope they take away from it?
I was very excited to explain what messenger RNA is, and I think that my mission was more educative mission, because many people like me who are non-scientific, I think that they lack information, basically. So I would like them to understand what messenger RNA is, and that the messenger gives a certain instruction to the body, so that the body becomes sort of like a bioreactor, producing the proteins we need for specific purposes. because this messenger RNA approach is basically revolutionizing the way we would produce pharmaceuticals and therapies in the very upcoming future. We already have the vaccines, I mean COVID vaccines, but I think there are more therapies that are coming. They are now in clinical trials against cancer, Alzheimer, and other deadly diseases. Because also against cancer, when I say against cancer, there are different types of cancer. So different companies are working with different types of cancer therapeutics.
So you mentioned already Katalin Kariko and her role in the film, but to get back a bit to seeing these two women who are very much at the top of their field and really leading the way in this research, I'm wondering if you had a chance to speak with them about the challenges specifically of being a woman in a male-dominated industry, especially as you yourself are a woman filmmaker in an industry that's still, especially behind the camera, quite male-dominated. So I'm curious to hear if that was part of your discussions with them at all.
When we had a discussion with both Özlem and with Katalin Kariko, I think first we were trying to bring the story out rather than speak of the women representation, because I think that at that time there were very few pioneers in this field. There were men and women. The idea of our storytelling to explain how technology works through the human stories of those scientists. So that was our mission. And yet I realize that we have a long bridge to cross in this communication project, and now we are on a mission of bridging the gap between science and society with my collaborator, who is an input producer, Yelena Ganshof. She couldn't come here at Johns Hopkins, but that's what we're doing. We're trying to bring the knowledge to the people and better explain what it is, because I think that when people don't understand, they don't trust. And the moment they will start understanding what it is and what benefits it's going to bring them or bring us as a humanity, the trust will develop, and we can together, like I would say, I imagine this bridge in the Swiss Alps, you know, this suspension bridge connecting two peaks of the mountains. It's shaky and it's fragile, and we are reinforcing this bridge step by step, brick by brick, by dialogue, by curiosity with scientists, with communicators, educators, policymakers, general public, building this bridge. Because I think all of us here, we are the bridge builders of this amazing discovery.
Yeah. And that's so important, and I think an artistic, a film or some sort of artistic way to build that bridge is, I think, one that makes a lot of impact with the broader public, for sure. So with that in mind, I have one more question for you, which is, what are you working on now? What is your next project, and what might we see from you next?
Well, we're still paying a lot of attention to and spending time on the messenger, on the communication project and distribution, the field, to make sure more and more people will watch the film. We'll have a special sponsored window until April 8th to watch the film in the original English version on the film platform. This is our educational distributor, filmplatform.net. Yeah. And of course, we have a few projects in development as I pay attention on artificial intelligence, on space technology, space solar, and some other scientific topics that excite me.
Well, hopefully we'll continue to hear about some amazing revolutionary developments in messenger RNA that will benefit humanity. And we also look forward to hearing about the next projects that you release, and maybe they'll also get a chance to be shown here in the US.
No, I hope so. Right now we're on the pitching and production adventure.
Right. It's a long road sometimes.
Yes, I would say every film is like a marathon.
Yes. Well, with that, thank you, Yelena, so much for sharing the film with us, for sharing your story about the film with us. And for anyone who hasn't had the chance to view the film, it will be available through the Swiss Film Club and on the internet platform until April 8th, so I hope that you all have a chance to watch it. And again, thank you for supporting our film programming, and to stay tuned for information about the next edition, please follow us on social media at Swiss Embassy USA or subscribe to our newsletters. And thank you again, Yelena, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.